Okay, so the next thing we have are our endorsed candidates, our OEA-R endorsed candidates for the retirement election in the STRS board. We give them a chance to talk to you. And then after that, Bill Neville, the executive director of the State Teachers Retirement System of Ohio, will be speaking and taking questions as well. So first, I will introduce Rita Walters. Rita's running for her second term on the board. She was a classroom teacher from 1976 to 2011 in Switzerland of Ohio schools. And she served on the retirement board since she was elected in 2017. She's earned the Certificate of Achievement in Public Policy Planning from the International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans and has attended numerous professional development opportunities to expand her knowledge of public pensions. Rita is an active member of OEA-R and a respected leader, currently serving as the Eastern Ohio EA representative on the OEA-R Advisory Council. She brings a long portfolio of association leadership to the STRS Retirement Board. While she was teaching, Rita served as a local president for Switzerland of Ohio and served as their bargaining chair for 20 years, which for bargaining is a long stint. I can tell you that for free. And then she was president of EOEA as well and spent 12 years on the OEA board of directors. So thanks for dropping in this morning, Rita, to talk about your candidacy, and I'll leave it to you.
Good morning. I am currently serving as the chairperson for the Ohio STRS Board of Directors, and I want to take this opportunity to thank OEA for their endorsement and to thank all those individuals that signed my petitions and that work so diligently on my behalf. I greatly appreciate all your efforts. I also appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. This past year, the State Teachers Retirement System of Ohio celebrated its 100th year of existence. The current board works to ensure that the system maintains its solvency and continues to pay benefits for the next 100 years. The decision to reduce the COLA was made by the board in April of 2017 after the system had undergone its most recent quinquennial review. At that time, the board's outside actuarial firm, Siegel, made several recommendations to the board to stabilize the STRS Ohio Fund. At that time, the funding level was at 75.1%, and its funding period was at 18.4 years. In the 2020 State Teachers Retirement System of Ohio's comprehensive annual financial report, the funding period has been reduced to 14.9 years, and the funding ratio is now 77.4%. The stability of the system continues to improve. I know there are people who don't believe that the board even thinks about the COLA, but that would be wrong. We know that the retirees have been patient, and we understand how essential it is for retirees to have protection from future inflation. And we are working to find ways to do that without jeopardizing the stability of the pension. The board must work for the good of all STRS members, not just the short term, but for many years ahead. The stability of the system is the board's highest duty. I was sworn in as an elected retired member of the board in September of 2017. Prior to that, I attended the board meetings each month for 4 years before ever being elected in order to learn what the issues were that were facing the board. I wanted to be a knowledgeable board member. I felt that I owed that to the members. I was awarded the Certificate of Achievement in Plan Policy, followed examinations in pensions and healthcare. I've also attended Callan College since I have been a member of the board for further training. As members of Public Pension Fund Board of Directors, we are fiduciaries. We have a responsibility as an oversight board to make decisions based on what is best for all members of the system, both active and retirees. We are not required to be experts, but we are expected to be prudent and to make sure that we have hired experts in various areas such as investments, finance, actuarial, member benefits. It is our responsibility to ensure that those that we hire provide us with the information we need to make the best decisions for all our members. We have an outstanding staff. Last spring, when the governor asked all businesses that could work from home to do so, our system never missed a beat. The entire system had trained and prepared for just such a situation. All the preparing and planning paid off because associates were able to work from home and not miss a call, and no one missed a benefit payment. When I joined the board in 2017, the healthcare fund was funded at 54.7%. Today, it is funded at 180%. During that time, I have been on the board. We have considered a variety of plans to implement that would stabilize the healthcare fund. We selected a plan and the staff implemented it, thus increasing the fund from 54% to 180% in 4 years. The actuaries estimate that STRS Ohio will be able to offer healthcare for its retirees for the foreseeable future. These important changes just didn't happen. They happened when proper steps were taken to make a plan and to execute it. I ask for your support for another term as trustee on the STRS Ohio Board of Directors to ensure experience and continuity on the board. We know what it takes to stabilize the retirement fund. We are making progress toward that goal. I ask that you give me the opportunity to continue the work on behalf of all members, both active and retired, of STRS Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Next, we have Bob Stein. And Bob was a 27-year classroom teacher. He taught 4th through 8th grades in Strongville City Schools, and he has a variety of many other experiences. He's been a college instructor, licensed financial planner, and SEC registered investment advisor. He's taken numerous courses on investments, taxes, insurance, retirement, and estate planning, and has earned a certificate of achievement in public plan policy from the International Foundation as well. Bob has served on the STRS board since 2009 and served 3 terms as the chair of the board and vice chair of the board, while serving as either chair or as a member on every other board committee. Go ahead, Bob. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning. I'm Bob Stein. I've been on the STRS Ohio board for about 12 years and served board leadership for 6 years, 3 as chair. I've attended every STRS board and committee meeting since the winter of 2008. You can see bios for both myself and Ms. Walters at the bobstein.us website. The bios on the site address other topics as well as details relating to my comments here. I'm here to thank you for helping to save Ohio teachers' pensions and health care in the past, and to ask for your continuing support on the mission to improve benefits for all. The pension reform plans STRS made during the global economic downturn involved extensive research and advice from consultants and STRS members. None of these plans became law. It wasn't until OEA and other HPA organizations expanded their participation that legislation passed. Without your cooperation and diligent advocacy, the legislature might have acted in the interests of lobbyists rather than educators. Since then, Ohio teachers have seen difficulties, but they have avoided the ongoing disasters of the pension systems in some other states. In the last decade, the STRS board has continued to work to stabilize healthcare and other benefits. The STRS Ohio healthcare plan is now funded for at least 60 years, and premiums have been kept stable. STRS improved staff development and succession planning to grow and retain cost-efficient and high-quality internal talent. STRS used this talent to improve and formalize a variety of management systems, including an enterprise risk management program to keep the system operating smoothly without an interruption, even when affected by unconventional risks like social unrest and a pandemic. By a variety of objective third-party measures in all areas, STRS is routinely recognized as a model for outstanding governance and management processes. STRS customer service levels have ranked number 1 or number 2 against global peers for each of the last 20 years. I'm encouraged by our unique progress in development of our investment area. However, stabilizing and improving the total value of STRS benefits is a challenge. For all the successes and improvements, it was still necessary to set future COLAs to 0% to control the growing risk to pension benefits in previously awarded COLAs. These actuarial risks are largely outside of STRS control. They come from the recognition of new economic realities following the global economic downturn, as well as the number of STRS retirees growing much faster than the number of contributing teachers. In a risk situation like this, successful investments will be the foundation of any benefit improvements, including the future restoration of COLA. STRS has never stopped working to improve investment performance, even though STRS is already internationally ranked as one of the most cost-efficient systems in its peer group. Other investment topics are outlined on my website as well. Improving benefits requires the ability to make integrated policy for an extremely complex organization, a system that faces challenges unique to the pension industry. There may have been a time when single-issue candidates, professionals from unrelated fields, or even interested novices could have served as effective board members. No more. To keep your pension safe, to improve benefits in the current environment, for STRS to accomplish its long-term mission, we must select board members with certificated training from institutions that are internationally recognized for their expertise in investments, pension plan policy, pension governance design, and pension system management. Only the OEA-endorsed candidates have such certificates, training, and experience. No other candidate approaches this standard. To protect your pension system, you must involve yourself in this selection. At minimum, you must promote and vote for people who have relevant experience and training, people who have already demonstrated a commitment to strengthening your retirement system. Thank you for your endorsement. Thank you for your professionalism. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. And yes, I will echo Bob. In order to be able, if you've ever talked to an actuary about pensions, you have to be able to understand what they're telling you. And both Bob and Rita have taken a ton of training to actually understand when actuaries talk to them or when investment experts talk to them about things like the efficient frontier of investing. They know what that means, and it's a very steep learning curve to be on the board. And I thank both of them for their service and for running again. Next up today, we have our Executive Director for the State Teachers Retirement System of Ohio. Bill Neville was selected as the 10th Executive Director of STRS this past June. Before becoming STRS Ohio's Executive Director, Bill served as STRS Ohio's General Counsel for 16 years. And prior to that, Bill was Associate Counsel at the Ohio Public Employee Retirement System. Bill's extensive experience in public retirement systems makes him well positioned to lead STRS Ohio in achieving its mission and vision. So thank you, Bill, for coming in this morning, and I'll toss it off to you.
Thank you, Mark, for that introduction. Thank you, Mary, for inviting me to speak today. I'm trying to share my screen as I speak. Hopefully I can do that. How's that? Can everyone see my my PowerPoint?
We don't have you yet there.
Not yet. Okay. How about now?
Now you're in.
Great. Again, thanks, Mark, for the invitation. Thank you all for joining us. I'm glad I'm not traversing icy roads in Ohio this morning, but I look forward to a time when we can all meet face to face and eye to eye. Zoom's a nice compromise, nice fallback for an in-person meeting, but I would vastly prefer to be speaking in front of you today. As Mark said, I can't believe it myself, my experience with public pension plans, and even before I was with OPERS, with representing the Ohio Public Employees Deferred Compensation Program, goes back over 20 years at this point. Today, I want to give you a brief history of STRS, a few impressions I have of the system from my new chair, my relatively new chair as executive director. Talk about some of the funding challenges we all face together, touch on our investments, a little bit about the oversight STRS has from statewide elected officials and from our board and from outside experts. I want to look ahead 12 to 15 to maybe 18 months down the road. It's some of the reviews and the audits that we will engage in that time, and hopefully some of the data we'll receive from those reviews. I've gotten a few questions in advance of the meeting from some of you participating today. I've tried to work in those answers to this presentation. And then, of course, as Marcus said, I'm happy to take questions through the chat function as well. So I promise we're not going to go year by year from 1920, but let's jump back to 1920 quickly and touch on why STRS was formed. At that time, pensions were provided at the local level, and half those pensions at the local school level were insolvent. The other half were headed that way. So STRS was created to take on the responsibility of providing pensions to Ohio's public educators. And we literally took on the liabilities, and liability is a word you'll probably hear throughout my presentation more times than any of us want to hear it. We took on the liabilities of those school systems. In 1921, we had 34,000 active members with only 323 retirees. And those retirees' monthly benefit was an average of $41.55. Let's fast forward 50 years, we had about 123,000 active members and 29,000 retirees. So in 1970, 4 active members for every retiree. We had healthcare coverage in 1974, and the cost of healthcare coverage in 1974 was $9.7 million annual cost. Today, we have about $4 billion of our investment assets in the healthcare fund, a fund set aside specifically and exclusively for healthcare. So when we talk about investment assets, about $4 billion of that is the healthcare fund. Alternative retirement programs were enacted in 1997 for certain university faculty. And of the faculty eligible to make an election, whether to join STRS or join an alternative retirement program, about 40% of that faculty elects the ARPs on an annual basis. Defined contribution plans followed shortly thereafter in 2000. When we talk about our investment assets, about $2 billion of those investment assets are defined contribution plan assets. So about $4 billion in healthcare right now, about $2 billion in defined contribution plan assets. Today, we have about 178,000 active members and about 157,000 benefit recipients. As you heard Director Stensrud mention about SERS, we are also a mature system. And one of the elements of that maturity is we have just about 1 retiree for every 1 active member. Some good news, the average monthly benefit has moved up a little bit over the past 101 years. A career teacher currently receives about $60,000 a year on average in pension benefits. We are one of the largest pension funds in the US. As of June 30th of last year, we manage about $78 billion in assets. My educated guess is that we're probably closer to 88 billion right now than 78 billion, somewhere around 85 to 86 billion with a little more precision. Again, some 6 billion of those assets are healthcare assets and defined benefit assets. Also, another element of a mature system, we pay out about $7.5 billion a year, about $7 billion in retirement benefits, and about $500 million in healthcare coverage. So that's about $1.3 million every day in healthcare expenses. So that 1974 annual cost of $9.7 million covers about a week of healthcare today. Our cash flow shortfall, to speak colloquially, is about $4 billion a year as we take in about $3.4 billion a year in member and employer contributions. So we need just about a 5% investment return to break even from that benefit to contribution shortfall that we experience annually. Some impressions that I have as executive director, some of them new in my new role, even though I've been around for 17 years, certainly a different perspective I have in my new capacity. One thing I knew all along is that the retirement board focuses each and every month on the financial condition of the system. The board understands active members want to lower contribution rates. They want to be able to retire sooner. We certainly understand that retirees would like to have a cost of living adjustment, and we're cognizant of the fact that our employers want pension liabilities reduced. Each employer, each school currently reports its proportionate share of STRS Ohio's unfunded liabilities on their balance sheets. So I can only speak for myself on this. I've got my current chair, a past chair, and a past chair, and I can't see the participants, but I'm guessing there are probably a couple other chairs of the board out there as well. So I can't speak for myself. I can't speak for the board, but I promise you, in my heart, I know that this board wants to pay every penny to members that we can prudently pay. Prudent, and prudence is probably the key word in that phrase, though. You think about it, a teacher walking into the classroom today has a chance that she will have a relationship with this system that extends into the next century. So the long-term sustainability of the pension fund is absolutely paramount. Some impressions of our staff. A lot of us have teachers in our families, including as do I. So this is more than just a job for us. I have had one of my outside counsel refer to it as he perceives this staff as viewing it as a sacred trust. It is legally a trust. I hesitate to use the word sacred, but that is what folks who are close to the system feel about how this staff feels about our relationship with our membership, and it is true. About 2/3 of our staff have bachelor's degrees. About a quarter of us have advanced degrees. Over 200 associates possess professional certifications like the CFA Charter, the CFA Institute Charter, or are CPAs. And we have, long before I got here, been recognized as an innovator in our industry, and we've ranked #1 in our peer group and for the last 5 groups in our customer service. So one of the questions I received in advance of this meeting is, why does the STRS staff receive COLAs? I want to make sure that I do not fail to mention that there are no automatic raises of any kind for staff. There are no COLAs for staff. Raises are based on the merit of each individual staff member. When I got here, we had over 700 associates. We have currently just over 500 associates. And anytime we have an opening, anytime we think we need a new hire, even if there's not an opening, my senior team and I sit down and we scrutinize that opening to make sure it is still a function that is necessary to meet the best interest of our membership. So you have my word, we will continue to hold the line on staffing. You have my word, again, this is what I feel, this is my opinion only, not the opinion of the board, that raises, merit-based raises for staff are necessary to attract and to retain the qualified staff that we need, that I need, that the board needs to protect all of your interests going forward. Some of the funding challenges we face, it's not all bad news, but the challenges do remain. Last June, we received a report in October that as of last June 30th, we were at 77.4% funding. And it's probably about a 14.9-year funding period. It is not completely accurate to say we can compare this to a mortgage, but that's a little bit like having 15 years left on our mortgage before we can pay it off. In this case, the mortgage principal amount is the amount of benefits that we have, that we're obligated to pay our current set of members. As of June 30. I think it's an educated guess, we are probably somewhere north of 80% today. That's not bad news, it's good news, but staff still estimates the pension fund faces a 29% chance of dropping below 50% funded at some point in the next 10 years. One additional bit of data on that, a 1-year drop. So if we have a 1-year investment return of a -5%, our funding period increases by 10 years. So jumps to about 25 years, and our funded ratio drops 10%. One other statistic, one of the other questions that I've received is essentially why can't we afford a COLA, or why aren't we paying a COLA? Let me give you a little bit of data on the impact of the COLA. A 2% COLA results in about $12.79 billion in liabilities to the system, and increases our chance of dropping below 50% funded ratio at some point in the next 10 years from about 30% to something right around 50%. So paying a COLA increases the chance of dropping below 50% funded to just about a coin toss at some point in the next 10 years. Looking at our investment portfolio, we do have a diverse portfolio that helped us weather the COVID-19 storm. We have domestic equities, international equities, we have bonds, we have real estate, both real estate directly owned and real estate investment trusts. And we have a growing alternative investment program and some liquidity reserves or cash. Of course, we have to pay out, as I mentioned, about $500 million a month in benefits. So it is a diverse portfolio. Through December of 2020, the fiscal 2021 return, or that return since July 1st, 2020, is about 15.9%, with the majority of that coming since the month of November. Now, that's good news, very good news. But let's pause to reflect. Last March at the lows, we were down in excess of 10% for fiscal year 2020. And our funded ratio was something closer to 67%. So we are very susceptible to the volatility of the public investment markets. Another question I've received in advance: why do we pay bonuses to investment staff? STRS manages about 70% of our assets in-house, and this method saves us about $100 million a year versus what it would cost for us to send that same pool of assets, let's say, to Wall Street. And that $100 million savings is the savings after we pay all the staff salary and all the incentives. So why do we pay bonuses? Because having in-house investment talent is a very efficient way for us to run those assets. And the bonuses are, again, in my opinion, necessary to attract and retain the investment professionals we need to run that amount of assets, billions of dollars of assets in-house. Now, expenses are one side of the equation. Let's take a look at the other side of the equation, the returns. Our investment performance has been quite good for a number of years, for quite some time. Callan, our retained investment consultant, reports that the STRS Ohio investment performance has ranked in the top 20% of Callan's public fund universe for the 3, 5, 7, and 10-year periods ended September 30th, 2020. And in the 7 and 10-year period, we were actually in the top 10% or the top decile of those funds. As of the end of fiscal 2020, so as of June 30th, 2020, our 5-year return was 6.91%. That outperforms our benchmark return of 6.6%, adding about $550 million to the fund during that period. I think some more good news. Our healthcare program, as Ms. Walters and Mr. Stein have both indicated in their comments, is in good shape. As most of you know, no employer contributions are currently used to fund the retiree healthcare program, but it is currently funded at about 180%. And that means if all our assumptions are met, as the actuaries project them, the healthcare program would be sufficiently funded to provide coverage for all current members. So if we meet all of our meet all of our assumptions, the actuaries tell us that our healthcare program is funded in what they call perpetuity. Also, as most of you know, many of you know, the board was able to return $200 per per enrollee to our healthcare plan participants in December. And we have held the line on the costs to our healthcare enrollees, with some 90% of health plan participants experiencing little or no increase in deductibles, out-of-pockets, or premiums in the last 6 years. Another question I've received in advance is how will STRS handle what I believe is being referred to as a forensic audit that's been talked about a lot lately. Honestly, I probably have less information about this review than many of you do. It is not a review or an audit that's being sponsored by STRS. And I'm not sure what the process or procedure for that review will be just yet. But what I can tell you about is the oversight, the layers of oversight to which STRS is subjected on a regular basis. The Ohio Retirement Study Council is the committee of the legislature that provides oversight to STRS, including fiduciary audits of all the public pension systems, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. The Treasurer of State custodies STRS Ohio's assets. They're not literally here in the building, they're custody with the Treasurer. The Auditor of State oversees an annual financial statement audit of STRS, and the auditor is in the process of selecting a new financial statement auditor for the system as we speak. We have an internal audit team that reports directly to the board's audit committee. And speaking of the board, I'd be remiss if I didn't say the board oversees staff. They set policies, they set the asset allocation, they confirm compliance with policies, and they meet roughly 10 times a year, and some of those meetings are for multiple days. Investment performance is not calculated in investments, it's calculated in our finance department, and we have an external firm that verifies our investment performance and has been doing that annually for quite some time. That's the oversight, layers of oversight. Let's look ahead to what I would say is even more oversight, more confirmation of our financial condition. Starting late summer, early fall, we will kick off 2 studies that I see as dovetailing together, and that is the actuarial experience review and an asset liability study. I'm going to guess both those studies will wrap up in the early spring of 2022. With the actuarial experience review, our actuaries will take a look back at the last 5 years at all of our economic and demographic assumptions and let us know what our actual experience is compared to what we estimated back then. The board may well need to reset some of those economic and demographic assumptions based on that review. And if the board does change those actuarial assumptions, it could impact our funded status. Perhaps most notably, our projected investment return is one of those economic assumptions. Dovetailing with that, based on that, moving contemporaneously with that study will be an asset liability study. And that is key to setting the asset allocation based on the level of risk that our outside consultants and our inside staff think is reasonable. Also this year, in calendar 2021, I expect, based on conversations I've had with the director of the Ohio Retirement Study Council, that the council will at least kick off a fiduciary audit of the system. That fiduciary audit's a ton of work. It goes on for months and months and months, but it looks at really every aspect of the system's operation and critically reviews the organizational design, the structure, and the practices of the system. I think also simultaneous with that review, the Ohio Retirement Study Council will conduct a review of our auditor, of our actuary, Chiron. So we'll have one audit from ORSC looking at how our operations are, giving us advice on how to do better on those. We'll have another audit confirming that Chiron, our actuary, is doing a good job in telling us what our assumptions need to be or what our financial condition is. And I think we probably have those studies wrapped up in the next 12 to 18 months. I can tell you as a new executive director, I very much look forward to what those studies will tell us and how working with the board, the staff can set the course of the system for several years to come. So as those of you who know me know, I tend to jot down things that I read or that I hear that make an impact on me. And one of those statements I read several years ago really resonates with me as I look at how to manage a public pension fund, a mature public pension fund, in these tumultuous times. And that phrase was from P.W. Huntington, the founder of Huntington National Bank. The phrase is, in prosperity, be prudent, in adversity, be patient. So as I've said throughout my presentations, our assets, our financial condition is moving in a way that we hoped it would, but we are still vulnerable to downturns in the market. We're going to receive a lot of data, a lot of empirical data in the next 12 to 18 months that will help the board, working with staff, set the course of the system. And I would ask you all, be patient with me, be patient with us. Let us compile that data so we can make prudent decisions for the benefit of all of our members, and both active and retired. And with that, I will test the limits of my technological ability and try to get back to the chat.
Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate it. And we do have a little bit of time for Q&A. So if you would make sure that you actually put your questions in chat. For those of you participating by phone, if you want to text your question, we'll give you a number and we'll try to get to it. It's 937-360-1554. Again, that's 937-360-1554. So a couple of questions that came up in the chat to start things off a little bit, Bill. Well, on one of them, you kind of touched on that. And I guess the question is, why can't we cut the budget of STRS so that we can pay a little bit of COLA? That's the first question.
So the operating budget of STRS is roughly $100 million. The COLA creates a liability at 2% of $12.79 billion. So there is no way to reduce the operating budget sufficiently to pay really even a modest COLA. The quantum of the budget, it pales in comparison to even a modest COLA.
Right, just as on scale, if you took the amount of benefits that STRS pays out in 1 year, and if you shut off the lights and fired everybody in the building, you would only pay 1 penny on every dollar of benefits that STRS pays each year. It's just a matter of billions versus millions. Let's see, the next question, I mean, how do you see COLA going in the future? That was the question that another one of our panelists asked, is what is the future of COLA? When, I guess the question is, when would you even consider paying it?
Well, what I can tell you is, sincerely, the board looks at the financial condition every month. I know anytime I speak to a board member, COLA is one of the topics we discuss. The motion that reduced the COLA to zero said the board would look at the COLA not later than the quinquennial review we anticipate being done in March of 2022. So trying to see the future 15 months out, I would expect there will be very formal discussions about the COLA no later than March or April of 2022. And certainly, again, we look at any number of ways we could provide some inflation protection for our current retirees. The question is simply, do we jeopardize the long-term funding of the retirement system by providing inflation protection too soon? I think our actuaries would tell us these early dollars, saving these early dollars is very, very important to build the resilience of the system, is very important to build that up before we start paying some kind of inflation protection again.
Yeah, and on that score, in terms of being able to provide some sort of inflation protection, Victoria Eckhart brings up a point. She says, "Thank you for keeping the healthcare costs steady and the healthcare fund well funded." And she said, "If my healthcare costs avoid large increases, then that's a gain that's kind of like a COLA because it doesn't erode your income as much when healthcare costs stay lower." So I don't have any other questions here, and we're nearing the end of our time. Mary, did you get anything? You're on mute.
That's right. I didn't get anything, but I did notice there was a question about, would we be able to get a copy of your PowerPoint to share?
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
If you would send me the PDF of the PowerPoint, and then I'll ship it to Mary and she can distribute it.
Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation here today. Before we sign off, I just want to remind you that you may be getting a link to a survey in your email. Just try to gauge your pros and cons on the presentation today and things we can do to make it more accessible to you. This has been recorded, and we're going to figure out a way to make sure that it's viewable by others. And I will leave it to Mary to close things out and say so long.
Okay. Thank you all for participating. This is a new area for us to be working in, so we appreciate everyone that was able to participate today. If you have other questions, please send them to us. And thank you all, the panelists, for being here today and giving such wonderful information. Hopefully we can spread this information as we further talk and work on the STRS campaign for Rita and Bob. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Bob and Rita. And thank you, Bill, for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Bye. Okay, I think we're done.
Hey, Mark,
Yes?
can you see my picture?
Yeah, I can see your picture, but I think in the webinar format, if your camera isn't on, then people can't see. That's what I got from a couple of panels. I did put something in the chat that said that your camera wasn't working, that your audio.
Yeah, I saw that, but I just wanted to know if you, because I don't have a camera. And so I just, set this up. So, with a Zoom thing, and I wanted to get a clue about that. Is there any chance that we could get the video of Bill's presentation? Like you have a recording, so we could just edit the thing so that maybe we can put it on the website, the STRS website. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody else about it.
I have the
Yeah, we are going to have recording available, and we haven't figured out how to get the link out or where to house it or anything like that, but we are recording it.
Okay. What do you know what format it's in?
No, it's whatever Zoom stores it in.
I think Zoom
Okay.
converts it to MP4,
Okay.
but I'll be doing that afterward. It's going to take a while to run the conversion with this long of a file, or this large of a file. But I should be able to pry out just the part that you want. If you're just looking for Bill's part.
Yeah, well, even if STRS doesn't post it, I'll put it on my website, and we'll see how that goes. But all right, well, yeah, thanks for doing this. This was cool. All right. And if you're going to do another one, give me a couple days notice if you will. And then
We'll do. Yep.
all right. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Bob.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark, for all the help. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I think we can cut it off. We still have 14 on, but I think we can finish it up.
All right, will do.